Well, I first heard of this story when I saw a documentary on Gordon. It was called A Personal Matter. And this was way back in the 1990s, and I was shocked that I had never heard of this story. I'm Japanese American, I'm Sansei. I was interested in the civil rights movement when I was in high school and inspired by people like Rosa Parks and other figures of the civil rights movement, and I was absolutely shocked that I had never heard of this Japanese American young man, Gordon Hirabayashi, that had defied and legally challenged the internment orders. So I was inspired partly because I felt that it was wrong that more people didn't know about him, not just Japanese Americans, but Americans. So that fueled my desire to write about him. And I think also I just loved the story. The more I found out about it, the more fascinating details, there were more quirky details that fascinated me. It was funny. It was full of important meaning about our country today, not just in the 1940s. And I just fell in love with the story, and it wouldn't let me go. So I had to write it in some sense. I did a lot of research at the University of Washington in Seattle, where Gordon attended college when the orders came out. And they have a wonderful collection of all kinds of articles and newspaper clippings, Gordon's letters, all kinds of research materials that are related to this topic. And Gordon's letters actually were donated to the University of Washington by a dear friend of his, Eleanor Ring. She saved all of his letters and donated them all to the University of Washington. And when I read those letters, his voice and his personality of the young Gordon, it just leapt off the page. And so those are my primary sources, those letters, of the interviews I did with Gordon. I did a number of interviews, and also Peter Iron's book, Justice at War, to familiarize myself with the court cases and just the general history of legally what was going on with Gordon's case. I tried a number of different formats. I tried a screenplay and a multi-character play, but my initial inspiration was the one-person show. And I tried all these different avenues, and I came back to the one-person show partially because I realized that Gordon, being very alone in some ways when he took his stand in the 1940s, because this was pre-civil rights era, that it was a very solitary stand he took. He did have some loyal supporters around him, but for the most part, he was really breaking new ground by challenging the government for the curfew and the evacuation orders. So I thought that a one-person show would really underscore the solitary nature of what he did. Len Berkman, who is a nationally renowned dramaturg, had helped me develop the play, and he was able to see our premiere in Los Angeles. And after Len saw it, he said, I want to give it to the Epic Theatre Ensemble, where his son Zach was one of the artistic directors. And when it came into Zach's hand, Zach loved the play. It was perfect for Epic, because Epic really seeks to do plays that encourage people, especially young people, to be active citizens. And so a play, about a young college student who stood up for his constitutional rights in the 1940s was really perfect for them. So for the past few years, we've done developmental work with Epic, the Lark Play Development Center, New York Theater Workshop, and we've taken all these different avenues with the play, but it's really ended up at home, the perfect home, I think, with the Epic Theatre Ensemble. So we've been really, really thrilled to be able to share it with not only the Epic community, but with the Epic high school students that they regularly work with here in the city.
You had your world premiere of the play at East West Players in Los Angeles in 2007, where you're from. What has been the difference between the response of the West Coast and the East Coast audiences?
Well, on the West Coast, I would say that people had heard of Gordon but didn't know the details of his story. But for the most part, there is some familiarity with what happened during World War II to the Japanese Americans, the forced removal, the exclusion order, the curfew. There's, I think, a general knowledge of what happened. Maybe not the details of the story. But here on the East Coast, I've discovered, because we've been doing readings for the past 3 or 4 years of the play here, and at every time we've done the readings and had after-show talks, people have expressed horror at what has gone on, or what did go on in the 1940s. Some people have absolutely no idea what happened. They have some general idea that something bad happened to the Japanese American community, but they don't know the details. They don't know that babies were taken out of orphanages and put behind barbed wire. They don't know that if you were 1/16th Japanese in Seattle, you had to go behind barbed wire. They don't know even that people lost their property, their businesses that it had taken a lifetime to build up. So in that sense, it's been really great to be able to share these stories with people on the East Coast that have no knowledge of these things. Well, I think what I hope is that they will be able to see that heroism isn't not necessarily something that is out of the reach of all of us, in the sense that Gordon did not see himself as a hero. He did not see himself as a rebel or a firebrand. He just listened to his internal voice that said, this is not right, and I have to stand for what I feel are my constitutional rights. Even if society is saying no to me, I can say yes, even if it means I have to go to prison, even if it means that people are against what I'm doing. I am going to say yes to myself. I'm going to be whole. I'm going to be an American citizen. And I think that that kind of heroism is a quiet heroism. That's something that we can all aspire to, something that is within our reach. It just means listening to our own inner voice and being true to our own inner voice and taking our journey step by step into territory that might be unfamiliar, but that feels right to us.